Thank you. Thank you, dear Kishira. It's really nice to be here with you. It's really good to see you, friends. I was here when we started, so I was looking at your faces as you were coming on Zoom, and I'm looking at them again now. It's very important for me to take a moment to welcome you. I'm just looking at you now. Faces I know, faces I know less. Just I'm really looking forward to sitting with each of you. Thank you for being here. I want to dedicate this meditation in particular to a friend of a dear student, Stephen, who just shared earlier that his good friend passed away, just passed away. So, Leilul Nishmat Gidon Eisenberg, Zichrono Livracha. I want to invite us to take just a few breaths in silence before we go into our little short learning prior to our meditation, just to really arrive and make space, make ourselves available. I invite you to sit comfortably. All that matters is that your back is straight without straining. So if you're sitting on a chair, perhaps more towards the front of the chair, or if you're against the back of the chair, make sure you have enough support. If you're sitting on a cushion, make sure you have support under your sitting bones. Just coming back home to the natural alignment of this body. And becoming just really like a tree. At the feet, like roots towards the ground, the earth. Taking roots in this moment and in this space. The spine like a trunk, reaching up towards the sky effortlessly. And just that, just taking a few deeper breaths, inviting a little more air in. And inviting a release, tensions as we breathe out. Just a couple of more minutes like this, following the cycles of breath, now that they're moving at their own pace, their natural pace, just noticing the in-breath, how it feels, and the out-breath. And please don't try to quiet your mind. Just let your mind be just as it is. Just occupy yourself with coming back to this breath, to this moment, to something very physical. What is it like to be sitting, alive, breathing right now? Okay, a moment to really dedicate ourselves to this moment together, this very precious half hour, 40 minutes together. Today's a very precious day. I'm really happy to be with you today, actually. I spoke about it a lot today and yesterday, for those of you who are learning with me in the text study program at IGS or with Torah Insights. So if that's you, I apologize for repeating myself. And at the same time, it's good because this is how we learn. And this is how we really kind of dive into the meanings of things, the meaning of things. So I'll say it again, that we are at the end of a cycle. We're at the end of a week here in Israel. It's already Thursday night. It's over. Friday, it's preparing for Shabbat here. We're at the dawn of a very, very special Shabbat. The Shabbat in which we bless the upcoming month of Nisan. And usually this Shabbat is called Shabbat Mevarechim, literally the Shabbat in which we bless. But this Shabbat Mevarechim is special because it's called Shabbat HaChodesh. This month, literally, that's what it means. In reference to the verse from the Torah that we will be reading on Shabbat morning, saying that this month will be for you a Rosh HaChodashim, the head of the month, the first month of all the month of the year. As you may know, the Jewish calendar actually has 4 New Years. And the most important one on the other side of the year from Rosh Hashanah, literally on the other side of the year, if you look at the year like a circle, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which will be happening on Sunday. And according to the biblical narrative, Nisan is the first month. It's the beginning, because in Nisan we're going to celebrate Pesach, which is the birth of us as a people. Rosh Hashanah is the birth of the world, and Nisan is the birth of us. Pesach is the birth of us. And we've been through a whole cycle of learning and cleansing ourselves until this month of Adar, in which we had what we call the 4 special Shabbatot throughout the month of Adar, in which we prepared ourselves Shabbat after Shabbat. We purified ourselves. We looked into our midot. I'll say it again because I think it's worth it. It's my own interpretation of the 4 Shabbatot. We have Shabbat Shkalim, Shabbat Zachor, Shabbat Para, and Shabbat HaChodesh. Shabbat Shkalim is in reference to the half shekel that we are to bring to the temple. Everybody, rich or poor, has to bring the same, which is a very symbolic amount because it's so small. And that's a reminder that we're all worth the same deep inside. Then Shabbat Zachor, remember Amalek. This, in my view, on a kind of inner work viewpoint, is an invitation to remember our own dark sides. Because when we leave with awareness of them, then they don't sholet, they don't rule over us, or less easily. The awareness that frees, it starts with this awareness. Then Shabbat Para, the Para Aduma, the red heifer, this kind of strange ritual, this red cow that's being offered as a sacrifice to purify us from Tumat Met, from the impurity contracted through contact with a dead body. This is on the pshat level of things, to purify ourselves so that we can be re'uim, so that we can be fit to receive, to do the Korban Pesach. But really on an inner level, it's an invitation to purify ourselves. And what does it mean? Purity really means being close to life. It's just an invitation to be close to life. To be close to life source. And then finally, Shabbat HaChodesh, in which we are going to bless the upcoming month, which means also the upcoming year. So we're just before that. We're at the end of a cycle of a year, not just at the end of a month. We're at the end of a year today. We're also at the end of a book, because we're closing the book of Shemot today. I'll send, after the teaching, I'll send a link actually to a resource that lists the 4 Shabbatot, but you can find it very, very easily on Google. You just Google 4 Shabbatot. Feel free to ask any questions when we have the time for Q&A. So we're closing a book, my friends, this Shabbat, closing the book of Shmot, and we're closing this period of the building of the Mishkan. And it's very interesting because the end of the book of Shmot was in a way a kind of foretaste of what's going to happen in the book of Vayikra also, which is a lot of very concrete actions, building the rituals, right, of the religion of Bnei Israel. And we're going to see with the Sfat Emet some taste of this connection between the very concrete, Parashat Pekudei really starts with the counting of the gold and the silver and the copper that were used to building the Mishkan. So you don't get as pragmatic and as concrete as that, do you? So what's the connection between this and the sublime? So I'm going to share with you something I just taught with my class, Torah Insights. And if you were there, don't worry, because it's still going to speak to you. I'm just going to focus on one point, okay? In the teachings of the Sfat Emet, Yehuda Alter Migur. He's starting by bringing a commentary from the Midrash, who is quoting the Talmud, who is saying, but wait a minute. We have this principle, we have this klal. This is not in the source sheet, I'm telling you, because the text you have here is a response to that. We have this principle that anything that can be counted, anything that is b'minyan, the bracha doesn't come upon it. Why? Because it's divided. And the bracha, blessing, doesn't come upon something that's divided. We need unity. Okay? But what is he going to say, the Sfat Emet? He's going to say, it's not a problem. Because al yadeh emuna kera'ui, if you have proper emuna, and then he's going to offer a definition of emuna. And that's why I thought it was good to share that with you today. Here we have a Hasidic master doing something that we don't often do, right? All these concepts, emuna, faith, love, ira'ah, that we talk about all the time, do we stop to ask ourselves, what does it mean really? So he's offering a definition of emuna, להיות נמשך אחר השורש, מקום האחדות. Emuna is to be drawn towards our root. And what is our root? It's the place of unity. That's what it means to be a human of faith. And he says, if you're in this place of emuna, of really basically being connected to unity, beyond and underneath the appearances of divisions of this world, okay? Then even if you're in a place of division, one way or another, the upper light will be drawn down to you. In this world, in this context in which things are counted and numerous, just like in the Mishkan. And he says, and this is the whole point of the Mishkan. And the invitation here is to see the Mishkan as a symbol, to draw the upper light down into the world of action. Okay, because the Mishkan is kind of our reference point for Asiyah, for the doing. And the bottom line is, it doesn't matter how much we live in a world that's divided. And I was also thinking of what we see in the news all the time right now, everywhere in the world, including where I live in Israel. It doesn't matter how much we live in a context that is divided. It doesn't matter that we're counting gold and silver and copper and measuring, and it doesn't matter. All that matters is that we're connected to oneness, to the source. All that matters is the intention of what we're doing. And if our intention is to be connected to oneness, then the bracha, the blessing and the light is going to be there in whatever we're doing. In whatever we're doing, no matter how divided the world is. And so this is an invitation for you, for us. No matter what you do in life, no matter how concrete and counting and pragmatic and no matter how divided your world is right now, well, you can be this point of unity. And this is a beautiful definition of faith. It's not believing in something specific. It's just connecting to oneness. And that might be enough. So let's sit, my friends. Coming back to your body, to your posture. I want to invite you to, 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 to let go of the text now. and to actually let it kind of percolate inside of you. Just let it be. It's like we put a tea bag in hot water and now it's going to be infusing during our meditation. Just let the meaning unfold in you as you do nothing, as you don't try to think or figure it out. Just here sitting and connecting to the oneness of the breath of life that's breathing through you right now. That's the invitation. Just coming back to that place of oneness, the breath of life, breathing through you with each in breath. Just remember to let everything be just as it is. Don't try to change your state of being. Don't try to change your mind. Don't try to quiet your thoughts. Just come back to presence. Just come back to feeling this oneness, the breath of life moving through you. That will be enough. And I offer my most beautiful presence for the last minute of this seat. And I set an intention for the rest of my week, for this upcoming month, to dedicate everything I do to oneness, the oneness of life. That really, really includes all of us in all our diversity and all of us humanity. Beautiful breath in, out. Thanking ourselves for making this time in our day. Thanking each other. And let's reunite with our dear Shira to say Kaddish together.
Thank you so much, dear Mira. What a beautiful practice. And I look forward to being in conversation about it shortly. First, we pause to uplift the memories of those who have come before. And if you are saying Mourner's Kaddish today, this week, we invite names in the chat of those who you are remembering. If it is your custom and you're able to rise in body, please feel welcome, or simply choose a body posture that brings you to presence. And if you'd like to come off mute to speak the words of Mourner's Kaddish or to respond, please feel welcome. We join together now, saying Yit Gadal, Yit
Shemay Rabba.
Amen.
Ra.
ויכון ובחי דרך בית ישראל, הנהלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
Amen.
Amen.
Ishmei Rabban Barach Lelam
Shmei Rabban
Lelam.
Le'olam Maya.
יתברך וישתבח ויתאר ויתרומם ויתעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה ושמי ושם בריחו כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה הרמה ועלמה ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
Amen.
שלמה רבה חיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
עשה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
all of those in the chat and all who are in our hearts. May their memories be for a blessing. Amen. Thank you to everyone for joining us and for your practice today. If you need to go at the hour, please know we're blessing you on your way. And if you'd like to stay on for an additional 15 minutes, we welcome questions, reflections in the chat. I'll do my best to track the chat while also being in conversation with Mira. Well, what a beautiful practice and such beautiful framing. Let's see if we can bring you back. Here we are. Great. I have a question for you. I have a couple of questions, but I'll go with the one that came to me in the conclusion of our practice. I really appreciated the idea, firstly, that to connect with the unity, with the oneness, simply just by breathing the breath of life is already an act of doing that. And you gave an invitation to include everything in its diversity. So my question for you is, do you have any advice for how to include even where we bump up against resistance, or how to include even that which is challenging or undesirable to include?
It's funny because I'm hearing your question, and I could hear it both ways. I could think of, oh, how do I include resistance in people around me, right? And in people and opinions, and I'm sure it's been part of the experience of many of you, especially since 1.5 years. And then also, I think that that's what you meant, really, things within us. And the truth is, if we talk about things within us, when we sit, they are already included. It's just as simple as that. Sometimes it's much more simple than you think. We don't even have to make an effort to accept them, because if they're there, it's because they belong. And I know it may sound counterintuitive, because we may think, no, but this is not a good energy to be in meditation with, and this is my smallness, and this is my envy, and this is my anger. But the thing is, if you've noticed, it's a big cliche I'm going to say, but everything, and it's an expression in English I find very, very right on and very useful. Everything we resist persists, right? And so if I don't include these things, I'm just going to stay stuck longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, and I'm going to keep trying to feel serene and one, and etc. But oneness is really made of all these parts in me, including the dark sides, including the wounds, including the unresolved things. And just knowing that it's already included, that it already belongs. Just knowing that I don't need to do anything. When it's ready, it's going to calm down. When it's ready. And that's the trick, is to, speaking of Emunah, to remember that it happens in its own time. That all I have to do is show up and make space for all of this in a way that is almost kind of indiscriminately, if you can say it like this.
Thank you for naming that whatever is there is already belongs, as you said. And as you're speaking, I'm having the recognition that including something is not the same as approving of something. And so we can sit with pain. It doesn't mean we have to like it. We can sit with discomfort, or we can sit with uncomfortable emotions that are arriving, including and acknowledging that they're there, as you say, not resisting, because then they'll persist, maybe even louder, doesn't mean an acceptance or an embrace or an invitation to stay forever, right? Everything changes, everything moves on. So thank you for distinguishing that. So helpful.
No, and thank you for kind of highlighting this, because that's the nuance, and that's very important. Like, welcoming is not indulging.
Beautiful.
Very, very different. Very different. You're here, okay, you're here, and you're very unpleasant, and we can still say, I hope you go away soon, because frankly, you're very unpleasant. But you're part of it. You belong, so I'll just let you be there, and I'll focus on what I want to focus on. Also, that's it. It's like, where do we put our focus? And welcoming everything doesn't mean I have to put my focus on, the pessimism or the fear of, no, I can just let it be there and mind my own business.
The very essence of being with what is, simply allowing ourselves to be, irrespective of what's happening inside of us or around us. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to just invite other questions or comments in the chat. If folks have questions based on today's teachings or today's practice, please feel welcome to bring them here.
If we're speaking about this, I actually want to share an anecdote with you. Very, very recent anecdote. While we wait for other questions. So I was just in the hospital. Some of you know I had surgery. I had an important surgery, which is my first important surgery that happened. And obviously it was very painful. And I was sharing the room with a lady. And I really saw the fruit of the practice. Because the lady had a very, very hard time the day after. And she was really fighting how she was feeling. And it made her feel worse and worse and worse and worse, until the point where she fainted, and, she had nausea. And I was in pain, but I wasn't suffering, because I wasn't resisting what was happening. I knew that's what was happening. I was in pain. And instead of looking at everything that was not going right, and ever since then, I've been looking at all the little things that are fine. And it's been very easy because the practice is so kind of integrated. And I just want to share, like, and I was hesitant to share this because I don't want to draw this kind of dichotomy between me and this lady, so I'm apologizing for portraying her like this. And at the same time, this is a real example of what it does when we resist and when we don't resist, and of really the gift of practice, that we don't need to add suffering to the pain.
That's right. What did they say? Pain is not optional. Suffering is. Well, and as you're describing this, firstly, refuah shlema. I'm glad that you're well enough to be here. And thank you for sharing the vulnerability of your experience. It dawns on me that also being in the room in your practice with her means including her, the reality of her there with her suffering, acknowledging there's nothing I can do to change her experience. Probably you would have had a more peaceful recovery in a room without anyone else, and yet there she was. And so even at that greater level, to be in the practice and acknowledging the discomfort, the distraction, the distress of something else that's happening in this space, to allow that to be what it is. And we just keep including and including.
Yeah, and in our case, I want to share, it was beautiful. Like I told her, I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. And then they were with me also because the nurses were not bringing me enough water and I was really thirsty. So her husband went to get me a bottle of water downstairs. Sorry. So no, it was beautiful.
Beautiful. Well, wishing you healing and wishing her healing. And somehow in this time of the anecdote, many questions came in. So let's see.
Yeah.
Try to pull a few from here. One question, Michael asks, how should advocacy and inclusion coexist at present? And I might just add another question. It's related, unrelated. Barry asks, how are you able to incorporate this understanding in your relationship to the other, such as the residents of Gaza? And those questions may not be rooted in the same, but I think they're not unrelated.
Okay, say it again, the questions.
So the first question is, how should advocacy and inclusion coexist at present? And another, go ahead.
No, I think I need more precision on the question, right? What do you mean by advocacy? What do you mean by inclusion? The person who has the question, you're welcome to write more about this, because often what's interesting for me is what your question is really saying and where is it coming from? Because right now, like, these are kind of general words and I could take them one direction or another. Like this, it's a bit abstract for me. I guess advocacy, if you're talking about opinions and are we going to try to convince others, what I can say on one foot is I believe rather in teaching by example rather than trying to convince others. I think we can see that we're at a time where nobody's convincing nobody. Let's be honest, okay? Everybody's living in their own echo chambers and receiving their own informations that feed like their own kind of narrative. And nobody is talking right now in the world. So I think for me, what is important is to connect with people on a deeper level, which is the level of our common humanity, no matter the narratives we've been fed, and no matter what that's done of us in terms of opinions and actions. And that would be my bottom line answer about the people of Gaza. Like, I'm trying to connect on that level with whoever I can connect to. But I can't say really more because I don't know what there is behind the question, It's always saying something. I'll also remind you that, like, I'm living in a country at war where I was attacked by a certain part. So just keep that in mind when you speak to me. I'm not speaking from a distance like many of you may be. Yeah. And that doesn't prevent me, by the way, from connecting, believe it or not, on a deeper level to absolutely everyone. And I mean absolutely everyone, but on a very, 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 very deep level. And I'm not sure I would be capable of doing it if I was, meeting them right now. But it's important for me and the level of my soul to connect to our common humanity.
The common humanity is another naming of the oneness, right? The breath of life. And in a manner of speaking, what you describe as inclusion and acknowledgement of the deep connection is the advocacy, right? There is nothing to say, no way to convince, no way to prove. But if we live as though we're aware of our inner connection, it changes how we are with ourselves and with each other. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the grace that you bring to the question. Let me
Thank
scroll
you.
a little bit because there's some more here. Esther asks, could you please talk about being with the difficult from a trauma-informed perspective?
Say it again.
Could you please address being with things that are difficult from a trauma-informed perspective? So I think what the question is
Okay.
asking, when in a trauma, does it change how we
Yeah.
approach things that are difficult?
Yeah. Thank you it's very important. I think there's a line, okay? And there is something that's changed in the mindfulness culture over the past, 5 years, maybe more. Very important. When I started sitting, there was this kind of belief that, we can sit through anything as long as we keep sitting. Okay, we don't believe in this anymore. Thank God. We've acknowledged that actually sometimes it's not good to sit with something when it's overwhelming for the system. And that line is trauma. Okay, when there is trauma, we all carry trauma, by the way, okay, to a greater or lesser extent. And the levels to which we're traumatized actually have little to do with what actually happened. You can have someone who's much more severely traumatized with something much less severe on the surface of things than someone else. So it's more about, how it impacted the system, if we were alone then to deal with it, and then how it kind of imprinted itself in the system, right? The trauma is not so much the fact of what happened to us, but the way it kind of stayed stuck in the system and kept us stuck there. So I wanted to say, that line is trauma, meaning how when there is actually something stuck in the system that is overwhelming, and that's the line. If something is overwhelming, and you will know it when it's overwhelming. You'll have physical symptoms. You'll feel either completely overstimulated or under, like, I forgot the terms, but basically either blurry or completely restless or super hot or sweating or red or crying in ways that feel like, if something feels unbearable, don't stay with it. Don't stay alone with it. Don't hold space alone. Just get up and go get help. Go get a hug. Go speak to someone. We need to speak sometimes. Sometimes the best practice is to stop sitting. And I will never say that enough. So I think it's really important to remember that. And thank you for the question.
Thank you for saying out loud. Sometimes we need permission. We need to hear from someone else. It's okay to stop sitting. And
yeah, I'll just say that there's a difference between difficult and unbearable.
Absolutely. And it's really through our practice of mindfulness that we're able to discern what we need. I think above all, if we can bring compassion to the moments where we say, okay, I'm going to sit for 15 minutes and it becomes unbearable or distressing to sit, we open our eyes. And then if we can bring compassion to not feel like I failed or I didn't do a good job or I don't know how to do this properly, tomorrow's another day, or maybe even an hour, we'll be ready to try again. But to bring always compassion to the awareness of what's arising for us.
Yeah.
I'm realizing the time, and I just want to cap by sharing a comment from Michael, who asked the question about inclusion and advocacy. He writes, you meaningfully met my question with teach by example, with respect for our common humanity. So I wanted to uplift that and reflect back to you that your response is very much appreciated. And to thank you for being here today, for guiding us, for bringing such wisdom and beauty into this space as always. Thank you to Andrew behind the scenes for making.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes. And thank you to all of you for being here and for your practice, and hope to cross paths again soon. Be well, everyone.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thank you.